Straight to the press review and Dipti. She's starting with a bit of controversy in Australia, aren't you, Dipti? This is the country's most decorated war veteran has actually been arrested for war crimes.
That's right, Stuart. It's dominating the Australian news websites. Ben Roberts-Smith, the most decorated war veteran in Australia, a recipient of Britain's Victoria Cross Medal, has been arrested and is charged with 5 counts of war crimes murders. It pertains to the deaths of 5 people during his stint in Afghanistan in the early 2000s. It's on the front of the Sydney Morning Herald's website, but also the Australian here, as you see. His arrests are really dominating the pages. The Sydney Morning Herald has been writing quite extensively about this. It reminds us that Roberts-Smith actually unsuccessfully sued the paper for defamation back in 2018 when the paper first published allegations of his alleged crimes. I can show you some of the front pages from the time between June and August 2018. These were some of the front pages from the Sydney Morning Herald and its partners. And he launched a defamation case in 2018. At the time, the $25 million civil case was the first time in history any court had examined claims of war crimes committed by Australian forces. It was known as a trial of the century, and his final appeal was dismissed just last year. Now, among the chilling, gruesome charges or details of his alleged crimes, one of the most high-profile murders, the alleged murder of a farmer in Darwin who was kicked off a slope and then shot in the head. Ben Roberts-Smith has also been accused of killing a man with a prosthetic leg and then using the prosthetic as a novelty beer-drinking vessel. If evidence follows in the same way as the defamation case, the jury will hear, I quote the Sydney Morning Herald, how Australia's most decorated living soldier is a serial killer who relished his crimes. It says it also publishes the details and the lengths to which he went to cover up allegedly and justify his, again, alleged crimes.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. Donald Trump's threat to destroy Iranian civilian infrastructure, of course, being focused on in the press.
Yeah, that's right. Let's show you this front page from Libération today. Donald Trump lunaire, or lunatic in English, it sort of loosely translates to the French paper Libération, lambasting the U.S. president over his latest threats to bombs Iran's civilian infrastructure if they don't reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, lunaire, which also sort of derived from the word moon, is a nice juxtaposition with this second part of its front page, the NASA's Artemis II crew and their successful flyby of the moon. This is from the Times of London today. A rather strange front page picture of Donald Trump, Melania Trump, and the Easter Bunny posing during festivities on Monday. You also have The Guardian here today, evoking that sort of Easter-themed language there, writing that Donald Trump began Easter Monday standing next to a giant bunny and boasting about the war in Iran to a group of children, conjuring a fitting image of a U.S. president literally falling down what some people might call the rabbit hole. Stuart.
And Donald Trump has also vowed that he's not worried about potential war crimes if the U.S. does bomb civilian infrastructure.
Yeah, and there's quite an interesting article from this website. The Lowy Institute is an Australian think tank, and they published this really interesting article here about Donald Trump's so-called Bridge and Power Day, noting the irony of Donald Trump threatening Iran's infrastructure and his blatant disregard for war crimes in November 2022, when Russia was deliberately targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The Pentagon called it a war crime. So now, by those standards, the website says these words are now the measure by which America's own threatened campaign will be judged by allies, adversaries, and history. The Guardian also says it puts U.S. service people in a very delicate position, and an unthinkable dilemma, really: disobey orders or face the prospect of actively committing war crimes.
And indeed, the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and the US's estrangement from the EU has it looking to other partnerships. This is in Africa, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. The Le Monde actually published the details of this. Its reporters traveled to Somaliland, where they report on the very secretive construction in the city of Berbera. It's a coastal city in the self-proclaimed Republic of Somaliland, where an airport is being transformed into what seems to be a military base for three of Somaliland's allies, the US, the UAE and Israel. Here's a little map that sort of explains what's happening. Israel was actually is the only country which has recognized Somaliland's independence. Somaliland has a very strategic location here, and it's believed that the base here that they're building, or what appears to be a base, could be interesting because of its proximity to the strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait. It could serve to launch, for instance, attacks on Yemen here. Currently, the neighboring Djibouti, where the US has a military base, but it does not allow any strikes to be launched into Yemen for fear of reprisal. Somaliland might be far more compliant, especially if you can get the US to recognize its sovereignty.
And finally, from Dipti, the Wall Street Journal has a story for us detailing how parents in the US are increasingly putting, I read this wrong first time, Dipti, it's not landmines, which is how I read it, landlines back in homes to dissuade their kids from getting smartphones.
Yeah, that's right. It's a really interesting story, Stuart, about how children are discovering the joys and challenges of a landline. Well, I mean, a modern version of a landline equipped with Wi-Fi, but no screens. It's become a handy tool for kids to use to talk to their friends, but without the fear of getting addicted to screens. For parents, companies have been piggybacking on the popularity. You see these really funky colored phones that are now being sold as well. Although it's coming with its own challenges, children are discovering that to use a landline, you need some etiquette. You cannot call a landline 17 times a day. Others are discovering that if you hold a landline receiver in front of your face like this, there's going to be no sound. So mind you, all of this costs a lot more, but parents say it's a price worth paying to delay the passage or the transition to smartphones for just a little bit longer.
All those cables running around the house, always the best. Thanks a lot. Dipti with the papers on France 24. More news coming up.